Da 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 da! What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today I explored a little bit of the outside. I've been trying to make a real effort in connecting with Mother Nature. Mother Nature is so huge for me. It's been a part of this process since I first woke up to some of these ideas. It has been a grace for me, to stay grounded, to stay optimistic, to recognize the beauty of this world's landscape. And also in that recognition that when I say it takes all kinds to make the world, I'm not just talking about the humans, right? I'm not just talking about different people. I am talking different in all kinds of ways. You know, I move about in my life, sometimes with a little bit of difficulty because it's not that I purposely stay away from some of these ideas, right? Some of these ideas that I think are so plainly in sight and plainly understood by some. And sometimes I feel that I just move about with blinders over my eyes, and I have to use my senses in order to make a little bit of movement. And I do that, right? I do that because you're right, I'm creating the best human being I possibly can, right? Understanding that those other parts of me will have to, right, ride those waves in their own way, just like I ride the waves in that naivety. Like I said, difficult word for me, right? That I have been referred to sometimes as naive. And possibly, right, most likely in some aspects of myself, I am, right? It is in that dynamic upbringing, it is in my experiences, it's in the lack of lessons, and it's in that lack of understanding or possibly even wanting or feeling like I need to understand, right? I explore the inside and the outside. But when I say that, that inside is in the emotions. And in this process, there have been moments of hairy, scary, right? There have been moments where I never actually understood how I could possibly get myself out of whatever sticky situation I had gotten myself into, right? But despite those feelings, right? Despite that fear and that anxiousness I had inside of me, there was something else there that was steadfast in its knowing that, right, as long as I don't give up, as long as I just keep going, despite whatever is coming at me, despite whatever those obstacles, what they could be, despite those naive parts of me that don't always catch the gist of what truly is going on. I have my own understandings, And so despite the movement, right? We talked a little bit about this yesterday, that sometimes we have to move with that majority, right? Because the majority rules in that. But we don't have to take it on as a truth for ourselves. We only have to move with it to stay safe, to stay welcomed, to feel like you really do belong somewhere. It's like you don't want to be ousted. And when you're not with the majority, right? The majority most likely won't want you around either, because if you're not part of the majority, you have that possibility of maybe swaying somebody to an opinion that's different than the majority. So sometimes we have to move with that. Sometimes we don't have any choices in that. That's when we have to stay steadfast in our beliefs, despite what other people think, despite what other people are asking us to digest, right? Despite our own limitations, right? Despite our own limitations, or despite the prognosis, right? Despite the lack of tools that we have on our tool belt, right? We have no choice but to show up. And why? It's because our very own survival. And even if it's not literally our survival, we have been growing up. We have surrounded ourselves with people with understandings that made it seem like it was desperate. And right, we end up a little bit messed up in that hypervigilance and spending so much time in focusing what can go wrong rather than, right, taking a look at all those things that we do get right. I do that, right? I'm constantly reinforcing my beliefs. I have no choice, right? Because of those limitations, right? Because of sometimes those lack of resources. Sometimes it's just in that prognosis that somebody else says that you can't do this, that you don't have the capability of doing this, you don't have the energy to do this, you don't have the knowledge to do this, right? You don't have the right to do this. You don't have the right. You're not you're not worthy of this big assignment, right? You're not worthy to step past anything more than what you came into this with, right? I didn't come in with too much, but I did tread water, right? And I kept going despite the pushback that was at me, despite my own limitations, despite that I was almost, right, going to end up homeless, despite I didn't blow up my brand like Logan Paul, right? Sometimes we have to do things despite what we see, what we feel, and what we hear, because, right, that's the pushback, right? That's the pushback. And yes, maybe in this moment, I can't do that. But you know what? You give me some time, you give me a few days, you give me a deadline, right? We'll make that happen. Despite that you think that I can't do that, despite that you think I'm not worthy, despite whether you think I'm capable, right? Despite whether I have the resources, despite, right, the prognosis isn't looking very good. I'm just going to keep going, right? And I'm going to do that in baby steps if I have to. And isn't that amazing that this word that we got this week, and we got our, right, 58th powerful word is despite. Who would have ever thought that that would have been a powerful word? But despite is a word full of not giving up, right? Despite is full, is digging right down to the very deepest part of us for that very last grain of hope or energy, right? Or just that last piece of everything that we have in an optimistic idea that somehow something will magnify in that will offer us up a chance to move forward a little bit, right? Moving forward, right, through our own choices, because we could choose something else. We could choose the couch and the remote control. We could choose to give up in so many different ways, right? But when you move forward, despite, that is the most admirable, inspiring, motivational, right? If Joe can do it without his legs, if Susan can do it blind, right? If Jane can do it homeless, right? I don't have those limitations. I have my own limitations. But despite those limitations, whatever they might be, right? I show up here fresh like a loaf of bread. I hold myself accountable to take in the lessons, right? Despite what you think, despite you might not think I'm worthy, despite you might not think that I know what I'm talking about, right? Despite the cards that I've been dealt, I'm not stopping. I'm moving forward. I would love to be one of those people that I am so inspired by because they do, despite, right? And if they can do it, there's absolutely no reason that I can't do it either, right? And if I can do it, right, you can do it too. Despite whatever, because we're able to do it in baby steps. Hello, Nancy. Hello. I tell you, you create the most amazing life for yourself, Nancy. I was in your site today and your brand, and I saw, right, your layout. I saw how determined and prepared you are, right? Despite your limitations, you made that happen, right? Like, That was incredible. You blew me away, and I know you're going to continue to blow me away in however long it takes you to get that layout done. I am looking forward to seeing those mountains. I have no idea. Is that paper mache that you're going to build those mountains? How are you going to do them? Are you going to like blow up a balloon and paper mache a balloon and then pop the balloon and then paint your mountains? What are you going to do? I'm really curious. Or you could just leave it as a surprise and surprise us all, Nancy, right? Yeah, that would be amazing. I went for a walk tonight, got 5 loads of laundry done. I got my lessons in, despite, right, my feet and my legs are burning a little bit because, right, I slacked off a little bit in those evening walks. But we're going to be back to it, you guys, right? Right? I have to change my sleeping habits too. Remember last year when I went on my trip last year, I noticed that I was having a hard time staying asleep at night. And that was because it got pitch black by 8 o'clock at night in my campsite. It was pitch black. It's not like you can flip a switch and turn on the lights, even though you could build a fire and have a lantern or whatever, right? It just seemed easier just to go to bed. And I'd crash right away because I was exhausted. But then again, right, because it was too early for me to go to bed, I woke up very early in the morning and I would just lay there, right, for hours wide awake. It was lovely, but I would have much preferred to have those really amazing 8 hour sleeps that I know that I can have when I'm out on the road, right? I have really good sleepies in my setups when I'm out on the road. So this year, before I leave, I want to try and get some of those sleeping habits switched up a little bit. So you might see my live shows come in a little bit earlier on my days off, only so that I can have that attempt to maybe put myself to bed. Maybe we'll start at maybe 10 o'clock at night and see if I can work myself down to 8 o'clock at night by the time I leave on my trip. All my campsites are booked, you guys. I have 11 different provincial parks, and I have a 2 night stay in New York State. So we got a great trip. It is a road trip, but lots of amazing pit stops along the way. We're going to have amazing time. I'm working hard on this trip, staying busy on that, right? Because this is my goal, right? These are my desires, and these are the amazing gifts that I give to myself and the people who've been following my content for years, like Nancy, right? Awesome. I am so. Did you didn't do the mountains already, did you? I didn't see the pictures. Oh my goodness. That must be Nancy sending me a picture. Let's, you guys, before we leave, I'm just gonna come in here and see what Nancy has sent me. Oh my, what? When did you get those done, Nancy? Those are spectacular. These are Nancy's mountains. Wow, they're beautiful, Nancy. You did such a good, is those waterfalls? Did you put waterfalls on your mountains? Oh my goodness. Absolutely spectacular. Wow, so creative. You did that today with that big bag of newspaper that you had? Those are absolute. Are those going to be waterfalls? Oh no, they're just tape. I'm curious to see what you're going to do with that, Nancy. Amazing, amazing. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. I am going to wash up, get my pajamas. Happy to be home. Going to take in a few lessons. And then going to get up tomorrow knowing that everything is done and tomorrow is completely mine. And yeah, I might flake out. I might go visit my sisters. I don't know what is in plan for the works. And sometimes you need those days, right? Just work with what comes across your path. And if I don't leave the house, nothing will come across my path. Oh, that's not true. Things come across my path here all the time, right? Throwing that wrench into the engine. Oh my goodness. But you know what? Despite, I'll be at it, right? And I'll ride that wave when I have to ride that wave. Okay, you guys. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Have a great night, Nancy. Thank you for popping in.